Hey, everybody, this is Bob Cargill from Bob Cargill's Marketing Show. I'm recording today's episode on Friday, December 4, 2020. A beautiful afternoon. The sun is shining behind me through the window. It's unseasonably warm temperatures here in Sudbury, Massachusetts. I hope life is good where you are. We're during the pandemic. We're well into the pandemic, the coronavirus crisis, so we're all hunkering down, and I'm thinking of you. Hope you are all staying well during these difficult days. Hey, this is Bob Cargill's Marketing Show, but today we're not going to talk about marketing. We're going to talk about inspiration and overcoming challenges, and we're going to talk with a very good friend of mine from my hometown where I grew up in Franklin, Massachusetts. I know Debbie Bean from church. I know Debbie from Franklin, where I grew up, and I know Debbie as someone I look up to and admire and respect so much. She's full of strength and courage and faith, and I think when you hear her story, you will be inspired beyond belief. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Debbie Bean. Debbie, say hello to everybody.
Hi, everyone. My name is Debbie, and I want to thank Bob Cargill for this opportunity to discuss my endeavors.
Endeavors, yes, indeed, Debbie. And of course, I know your story, and you told your story recently at the Franklin United Methodist Church, a church I went to as a kid, and I've been going back to, getting to be a fairly regular attendee, if you will, in my adult life. I skipped church for many years, but I've been going back. My mother goes there. She's 89 years old, and she goes very faithfully. I know you attend very faithfully, and that's where you and I have reconnected. Of course, we're doing it virtually via Google Meet or Google Hangout, however Pastor Jacob does it. He does it really well. Such a great pastor. But anyways, you told your story, Debbie, just a week or two ago in church, and I have a copy of the text you shared, and I caught just the end part of it. I tuned in a little late, and I reached out to you and I said, I need to see the whole story. And when I saw the whole story, hey, you and I talked, I think it was a year or two ago. I said I would love to interview you one of these days, and you finally said yes. And so I'm so happy that we're talking today, and I want to get right to the point where you were in the hospital. So we're going to jump around here, but of course, I know your story, viewers don't. In December 2006, you were in the hospital with a very serious illness, so serious that the doctors told your family to say goodbye to you. Can you tell us what happened? And you can take as much time as you want to tell that story.
Yeah. The funny thing is, December 18th, I went to bed that night feeling fine. The next morning, I just couldn't get out of bed. And that's how quickly it just came over me. When on me, she called the ambulance. And the last thing I remember was when they pulled me out of the ambulance. Out of my bedroom, and they were bringing me downstairs. And that's when I went out. I vaguely remember going into the car, but the ambulance, and that was it. Then I was out. So I don't remember anything from that point until I woke up sometime in January. And this was after they had amputated both my hands and my feet. And they had me so heavily sedated that when I did wake up, I was kind of like, oh, I don't have a hand. Oh, that's nice. Go back to sleep again. So it never really hit me like, oh my God, I don't have hands or feet. It just every day. And then my family would come in to talk to me, and I would ask them, what's going on, and they'd have to tell me all over again. It was like that movie that the thing just keeps happening over and over again. But finally sunk in because I was at UMass in Worcester for 2 months, being so heavily sedated. And my brother said he was talking to one of the doctors, and they told him that if they did their job right, I wouldn't remember anything. And they were right. I don't remember anything other than the day when they sent me in the ambulance from UMass to a rehab center in Leicester, Mass. That's when I started to slowly wake up because the medication was wearing off. And then I started to realize what was going on. And in the meantime, my poor family, they were being told to say their goodbyes to me because I wasn't going to make it. And they called in, a friend of mine is a deacon in the Catholic Church. He came in and he said prayers for me. I think the minister from the Methodist Church came over and he said prayers for me. And no one thought I was going to make it. But I did. And when I went to rehab, all the nurses there said to themselves, she's not going to make it. I proved them all wrong.
You sure did.
And I'm here today because of the care that I got and the family support that I have. It's just amazing.
And because you are ridiculously strong, Debbie, and courageous.
It's funny you say that strong thing because I always prided myself on being physically strong. I was one of the strongest people in my family, physically. And when I went to, a couple of years later, I went to a convention in Florida for the amputees and talking about this virus that everyone got. And they said that most people die from it, but only ones that survive are the ones that were strong.
Look at that. Yep.
Strong saved my life, really.
Being physically strong and I think
strong.
And I think emotionally strong because you have such a positive attitude. You're so perseverant.
Well, thank you. In my subconscious state, I was having semi-conscious, wild, vivid dreams. And I kept telling God, I will not die. I will not die. I will not die. I kept telling him. And I think between that, my strength and my will power and the grace of God, that's why I'm here today.
Amazing. Amazing story. What is the exact name of the illness and how rare is it that you were affected by?
It's not that rare. It's not that rare. At first I thought I had meningococcal whatever, and it wasn't meningitis. They determined it was streptococcemia or pneumococcemia. They're both in the same family, and that's what I caught as a virus. But because in 1999 I had my spleen removed for another issue, and because I didn't have the spleen to fight this virus, that's what made it take over my body and cause the sepsis.
That's what I have your notes, the streptococcemia. Right. And because you didn't have your spleen, which had been removed, say 7 years ago or so, before that event, you weren't able to your body wasn't able to fight this off.
Like and everyone else could, right.
It resulted in they had to amputate your hands and your feet.
Yes, because they had turned black with gangrene. What they did was they gave me a medication when I was in UMass to restrict my blood flow in order to keep the blood flow in my torso, which would keep me alive. But in the process, my hands and feet turned black with gangrene because they did not receive the blood flow. And then when they amputated my hands and feet, I miraculously just started getting better every day.
Are there any other besides, and that's a huge loss. I can't imagine, Debbie. But besides that, are there any other lasting effects from that illness? Physical.
Yes, I have, they treated me like a burn patient because I have, what the sepsis did was it burnt me from the inside out instead of the outside in. So my legs and my arms have scar tissue and a little bit on my face, but it's not noticeable unless I point it out to someone.
Interesting.
That's the damage that was left from the sepsis.
And do you get care physically for what happened to you to this day in
No,
terms?
not for that. No, that's been resolved. There's nothing more they can do for me.
Amazing, amazing.
That.
We're going to get back to this, but I have so many questions, and I want to make sure we cover your entire life, if possible,
Sure.
in half an
Sure.
hour, 40 minutes. Prior to all of this, what was life growing up like for you in Franklin? And I grew up there too.
Oh,
I think you're
yeah.
about 4 years older than me. So
Yeah. I remember you well, Bobby, because we were older than you. The girls and I that hung out in the church, we used to think you were the cutest thing ever. Because one day you started saying all your words with an S on the end of it. Do you remember that?
I do not remember that.
And we just thought that was the cutest thing because you were saying all your words with an S on the end.
You're making me blush, and you're also making me feel good, Debbie. I need to hear these positive words. So thank
well,
you.
we all enjoyed you. You were just so cute, and I remember you, Bobby, all through high school and everything. So you were always just a good guy.
What about you shared a little bit in your talk at the church, and you were there in person, and I was so impressed. You went to the church, and only a few people, I think, were in the church, but you were there up on the altar, and it was an impressive talk. What I only saw, again, the last few minutes of it. I apologize for missing the beginning.
That's okay.
But I have the notes here, and you're telling me the whole story, as well as a lot of viewers and listeners, the whole story today.
Yeah.
What about just growing up as a child? You said a few
Okay.
things about what it was like as a kid
Yeah.
in Franklin.
Yeah, Franklin is an amazing town to grow up in. There's a lot of services here for the kids. And when we were growing up, we were bored because there was nothing to do. Now it's different. Now there's a lot more for the kids. But it was always a very stable town. You've probably heard it was voted the safest place in America to crime per capita. And that's a good thing.
Yes, very good thing.
Yes, we felt safe. We felt secure. I mean, we could walk down the street. Well, life was different back in the 50s and 60s than it is now. I could walk down the street and ride my bike down the street and go wherever I wanted. And now you just can't. You can't because number one, the traffic, and number two, the way this civilization is now. It's just a different life.
Sure.
Than it was back then. But back then it was just amazing growing up. And even now, the people that live here love this town. Everyone on Facebook say what a good town it is to live in. So I feel very blessed that I grew up here. And when I got married and left, I was sad. I wanted to be here. But we lived in Bellingham, and then I lived in Blackstone, and whatever. For 16 years, I was not here. So when it finally came to push come to shove, when my mom and the house was up on the market, was going to be on the market, all the four of us kids got together, and nobody really wanted it except me. I wanted to give it a try. So I ended up buying the house I grew up in, which is kind of neat.
That is.
My daughter and my granddaughters are here with me. They live upstairs, and they're growing up in this house, which is a really neat thing to do.
So you disproved the adage, you can't go back home again. You did go back home again, and you love it. And I love going back to Franklin to visit my mom.
Yes, absolutely. And the church was always a good place for me to grow up in. A lot of good friends, a lot of good things going on. We had the MYF, remember that? Methodist Youth.
Yes, again, you were a better churchgoer and still are than I was and am. Well, I didn't belong to that.
Many years I didn't go to church for one reason or other, and that's another story for another day. But I came back about 3 years ago. I came back, and I've been going just about every Sunday since.
Okay, you're making me feel better because I actually, it's only done the last few years.
You said you were gone for a while too.
Yeah, I was gone for quite a while. I would go once.
Relate to that.
Yeah, I'd go once or twice a year, Easter and Christmas maybe.
You did more than I did.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Then I'm feeling good all over today during this conversation, good. Debbie.
Good.
I want to focus, if you don't mind, on, again, I look at you as such an inspiration, and I know, look how positive you are, and you're smiling and you're telling me we're sharing some great, great fond memories and talking so positively about Franklin, as we should. But people don't know how much loss you've overcome. It's amazing. I mean, it's a long
Yeah.
list. Can
Yeah.
you talk about some of the loved ones you've lost, and some
Yeah.
of it right around the time you were, some of these losses, when you needed folks so dearly and deeply, but unfortunately they were struggling as well. Can you talk about some of that?
Yeah. My grandmother, actually, let me back up. My first marriage, I was right out of high school, and I just thought you had to get married because my parents had a good marriage and I wanted that too, and blah, blah, blah. And my first job I took out of high school, I met this guy and I thought he was funny. Made me laugh. And we ended up dating and then getting married, and we had 2 kids. And then 5 years later, he decided he wanted a divorce because it wasn't working. So um, that ended that. And then right after I got divorced, I had to quit my job because my ex-husband was my babysitter, and we only had one car that he took. And then right after that, my grandmother died
Mm.
in May of 78. And I was very close to her. And when she died, it really bothered me. But I held on to it because when we went to her funeral, it was so beautiful. The minister there did such a wonderful job on her service. And I thought to myself, she died of old age. And I thought, that's what life's all about. It was beautiful. It hurt deeply, but it was beautiful at the same time. So then 2 months later, I got a call at work. Come to the hospital. Your father was in an accident.
Yeah. Oh.
And I got to the hospital, and there's my mother sitting in a chair crying. Dad's gone. And I still to this day haven't gotten over that. Losing my dad was just the worst thing ever.
So sudden, so shocking.
Yes. Yes. So I ended up going into therapy because, well, I wasn't in there that long. And the therapist said to me, Debbie, there's really nothing wrong with you. You've just had to deal with so much so quickly that you haven't been able to stand up from one thing before the next thing knocks you down again. Because in an 18-month period, I lost my grandmother, my father, my husband, my house, and my job. All I had on me was clothes on my back and 2 beds for my kids, their clothes and their 2 beds. So I moved in with my mother here at this house when she was alive. I was here for 18 months before I went out and got my own place. But that was quite a life changer right there. All those losses so quickly.
And Debbie, you say that therapist said something about you had dealt with so much, and quote or paraphrase that's all that was wrong with you, but it's understandable that emotionally there would be a lot that you were struggling with because of all that loss.
Right. And that was just the beginning.
Yes, and I want to hear the middle and the end as well. But I want to interject with, whatever he or she said is understandable, but I would contradict him or her a little bit in that, think of how you did get back up on your feet and after falling down, and you have gotten back up on your feet after falling down countless times in your life. So, I mean, you could be, in my mind, doling out the counseling and the therapy. And that's why I'm so excited to be talking to you today, because I think you can help so many others by sharing
I hope so.
your story.
Yeah, I hope so.
Tell us about, there's more. Your mom, I remember your mom. And I think when I was little, my mom would, I think, bring me over to your house, or I remember your mom, and I think I had been to your house when we were little.
Yeah.
What? Tell us her story, if you don't mind.
No, she in 1998, I believe, she had a stroke, and we had to help her out, and just so weird seeing her as a patient rather than a mother. And but we did. We managed to somehow get through that. And then she was okay until about 1984 when they found out she had breast cancer. And they wanted to do a mastectomy on her. And they did. And then she was considered cancer-free for, I think, I don't know how many years she was considered cancer-free until she wasn't. And it came back. It metastasized, is that the word?
Yep.
Into her body. So she ended up with bone cancer. And she passed away in 2001 because of that. And when my father died, my mom handled all the service and everything, and we never got involved. But when she died, my brothers and my sister and I had to handle all the wake and the burial issues. And you don't know what's involved until you go through it. And it was just heartbreaking to have to go through all that, make all those decisions.
Yeah. Again, and life didn't after that get any easier for you
No.
by any means.
No, I got remarried for the second time before my mother passed. So she knew I was remarried, but she knew it wasn't the best thing. There's issues. We had issues, and I was trying to ignore them like I did the first marriage, but he ended up not wanting to go on with it. And again, I ended up alone. But in the meantime, then we had a pool in the backyard, and I had gone out to swim, and then I see all these bruises all over my body. I didn't know where they came from. So I said, I better go to the doctor and have a checkup because I hadn't had a checkup in a while. And that's when they found out that I had the called ITP, which is idiopathic thrombocytopenia purpura. It's a name for my spleen. My immune system attacks my platelets because they think they're foreign.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, it was the first line of defense was to take your spleen out because back then they thought the spleen was the culprit. Come to find out, it wasn't the culprit for me because it never fixed the problem afterwards. So, and I still have the issue with the low platelet count. And without the spleen, that's when I caught this virus and
right.
all this trouble.
You've played the cards you've been dealt very well, Debbie. And
Yes.
and you had go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I've always said to myself, I have two choices. I can either laugh or cry, and I don't want to cry. I'd much rather laugh. And after my amputations, I'll show you, and maybe you can laugh too. Can you see my arm here?
Yes, I do.
My arm. I used to hold it up to my therapist one day, and I said, doesn't that look like a butternut squash? Well, she cracked up laughing. Said, well, you got to laugh at yourself. That's what it looks like.
Yes, that's funny, and
you've got to have that. You've got to have that attitude. Otherwise, what good? Where would I be? I'd be sulking in a room all by myself, not doing anybody any good.
Look at you, Debbie. Again, this is why I'm talking to you today. I've talked to you before, but I wanted to capture this conversation, if you will. It's so inspiring to me, and I know anybody who hears it and gets to know you. You have two children, is that correct?
Yes, I do. I have two girls. They're 40. Let me see.
And there's someone else that you.
Yeah, that was Mia. She just hugged me. My granddaughter.
Hi, Mia. I'm Bob.
You said hi. I said hi back. Hi. My first was born in 75, so that would make her 42? No, 45.
45, yeah.
45, and then Karen is 43. And then they each have one
child,
biological child, and then they each have one adopted child.
Gotcha.
have 4, and this is Mia. She's my little 6-year-old granddaughter.
Awesome. Hi, Mia. Your grandmom is awesome. Ridiculously awesome.
Oh, she's leaving.
So there absolutely are silver linings in
Absolutely.
your story, and
Right.
the kids and the grandkids are those silver linings. And again,
Exactly.
you're
Exactly.
sharing your positive attitude, and there's also a role that the church and your belief and God and plays in all of this. Am I
Yes.
correct?
Absolutely. He's the one that helped me through it.
Tell me how life changed for you after the 2006
After the
medical
amputation.
event that resulted
Yeah.
in the loss
When
of your.
I came home in August the next year.
How does one go from, you know, how did life change when you lost your
Yeah,
hands and your
it's like
feet? I can't
going from
imagine.
6. Yeah, it's like going from 60 to 0 overnight. And I mean, I was so let me back up a minute. When I was little, I'm so damn independent. When I was little, even my mother would go to do something for me, and I'd say, "No, Debadoo, Debadoo." So I got the name Debadoo because I'm just so independent. But anyway, that carried with me my whole life, and everything I did, I had to do by myself and prove to myself that I could do it. So that when I bought this house, we had all kinds of evergreens around, and all they were leaf catchers. The first year I had 100 bags of leaves that I raked up. So I got so mad at those things that I went out and bought a chainsaw. And I chopped them all down. People were going by looking at me like, "Who's that crazy lady with the chainsaw?" But I did that. I did all the work around
How
the
did
house.
you manage that?
This was before.
So yeah, before,
I taught myself. Yeah, I
yeah.
just taught myself how to
So
do things.
because of how strong and industrious
My
you
independence.
are, have always been, that's how you survived the after
Oh
the
yeah,
incident, because
yeah.
you were built strong to
I
adapt.
was. I was. And then before this all happened, after I bought the house, before this all happened, that's when I was doing everything in the house, raking leaves and cutting down trees and painting and wallpapering and you name it, I did it. Carpentry. I was building 2 tables the night before I got sick. I was in the basement with doing carpentry. I just love all that kind of stuff. And then have this happen, and I have to realize I can't do that anymore. I just have to watch other people do it. It killed me. That was the worst part. Just watching other people do the things that I used to do that I couldn't do anymore.
But I know there are things you do and
Yeah.
have learned to do. You
Yes.
invent things,
Yes.
you improvise. I think you drive a
I do.
vehicle. Yeah,
I
so
do. What
you
happened
do
was,
some amazing things.
well, this
Talk
happened in
about these
2000.
things.
This happened in 2007. In 2009, I believe it was, my previous employer told me that I should go to mass rehab. And I was like, "Why? What are they going to do?" And she says, "I don't know. They have all kinds of programs. Try it out." So I did. I went and tried it out. And lo and behold, they said to me, "If you buy a van, we'll have it adapted for you. But the only catch is you have to agree to go back to work." And I was like, "Work? Well, hire me. And what can I do like this?" And so they sent me to the Easter Seals to have a driving test, which is amazing. I think everyone that gets a license should go through that test. It's just amazing. And then they did all these different adaptability functions of things that I could and could not do. They had checklists and everything and this and that. And then they determined that I could go back to work. And it just struck me. I was like, yeah, but who's going to hire me still, even if I can do this? So they had a meeting one day with apparently HMEA in Franklin here has a job coach that works with mass rehab. And she finds jobs for the people like me who need them. Well, when she came in and was talking with the mass rehab guy and myself, the three of us, I told her, I said, I really would like to work for a nonprofit somewhere in Franklin because I really don't want to travel too far. And I just don't like the corporate business too much anymore. It turned me off the jobs I had. She said, okay. She says, well, HMEA is nonprofit. Maybe we could use you. So she went back to whoever, and then they hired me. They hired me temporarily as the receptionist. They wanted me full time, and I couldn't work full time. So then they said, well, they had a database issue. They had all these clients and no database to put them in. So they had no idea where the clients were, what conditions they had, or whatever. Would I be willing to start a database for them with their software? And I was like, yeah, that sounds very interesting.
Debbie do.
Yeah, Debbie too. So they let me work part-time on my hours because I'm on SSDI and they only let you work so many hours before
Yeah.
they cut you off.
Mm-hmm.
So it was determined I could work X amount of hours. So they hired me for X amount of hours and I started doing this job for HMEA and their data entry database, and it just took off.
Are you still working there, or did you? How long?
I am.
You are.
I am.
That is amazing. So
I
know that organization, hmea.org,
yes,
I believe would be their website.
yes,
I did a road race once or
yeah,
twice.
yeah.
They had a 5K, I think.
We have that every year.
Yeah, I did that
Yeah.
back a number of years ago, at least once, maybe twice. I can't remember. But
Yeah.
I know that organization because I get their mailings because I got on their mailing list as a
Yeah.
result of doing that race.
Yeah.
And until today, I didn't know you worked there. You may have told
Yep.
me and I forgot.
I'm
That is
sorry.
awesome. No, that,
Yeah,
so, and you drive yourself to work.
I do. So the car they adapted for me, the adaptations cost more than the car did. And the state paid for all that. So I was very grateful. And that's
Awesome.
still have to this day. And I bought that in 2010. So it's already 10 years old.
So,
Starting to show its age.
so
It works.
I asked you how life changed, and it sounds like nothing changed. What changed, Debbie? You just aren't
What
using
changed?
that. You aren't using that chainsaw out in the yard.
No, I
but I
can't
bet
use
you
the
could.
chainsaw.
I bet you could do anything
Uh,
you wanted to, needed to do. Almost.
Maybe. I do a lot of stuff. The other day I was telling somebody, I have an automatic ice maker in my kitchen and I love ice. A drink is nothing without ice to me. So I went and I got my cup of ice and didn't I drop it? All the ice went all over the big cup of ice. Now what do? So I managed to get a broom and I have one of those sweeper things where you sweep into a scooper.
Yeah, dustpan and, well, I know what you mean. Yeah, the broom
Yeah,
and
a broom and a
dust
dustpan to get
pan,
it
yeah.
together. So I swept all the ice cubes into that tray there, lifted it up and brought it over to the sink, got it halfway over. Half the ice went in the sink and the other half went back on the floor. So here I am sweeping up the rest of the ice.
Clearly, we joke, but clearly there are limitations.
Yes, absolutely.
And obstacles. I mean, that's how I introduced you, someone who's overcome so many challenges, but
Yeah,
clearly
but
some challenges are not impossible, but almost so.
Yeah,
with
I have to laugh at myself because, like I said, I'm not going to cry over it. It just gets funnier.
well, you are blessed with this positive attitude.
Oh.
That I, again, can imagine you're able to accept what limitations you may have, the very few that you may have because of your physical, the illness that resulted in the loss of your hands and your feet. You're able to accept the few limitations that you have, but emotionally, I bet you have no limitations because you have such a positive mindset. I don't look at you as having any limitations. I mean, I don't
Oh,
hear you as having any limitations.
oh, well, thank you.
I look at you and I'm looking into your eyes on Zoom. It's hard to make eye contact. If I'm looking at the
Yeah.
camera, I'm actually looking up here. I'm looking right there at you and I'm saying, I see this amazingly strong person, amazingly courageous and inspirational and with a great sense of humor. and I didn't know it's Debbie Dew. Am I saying, or what did you say?
Dabadoo.
Debadoo.
Dabadoo.
Almost like Yabadoo, Yabba
Yeah,
Dabba from the
that's right.
Flintstones. Dabadoo,
Dabadoo.
Debadoo. Tell me, so on that note, Debadoo, what else besides work and what else do you do? What do you do for fun? What do you do for
Well,
relaxation?
well,
What's a typical day besides work for Debbie Bean?
computers. I'm on the computers a lot because I work at home now. So I'm either working on there's two computers side by side here. I'm either working or I'm on their computer or I'm playing on my computer. Other than that, I watch TV. When the pandemic wasn't here, I go shopping at Walmart or grocery stores or go visit a friend, whatever, if I could get in their house, that's a battle right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the houses need to be, and they're not required
Yeah,
to be by law, accommodating to
right, right.
your
Most houses don't
wheelchair.
have to be. Yeah, I'd have to be able to roll in, and I don't have too many friends that are on that level where I could roll into their apartment. So anyway, so that's what I would do on a typical day. Now I'm stuck to TV and the computers and
I see you on Facebook a lot.
oh, no. Yeah, on Facebook
we
a lot.
we both like Facebook.
Yeah, but to add insult to injury, in 2012, I was diagnosed with having after the oh no before this is before that, yeah, 2012 I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I had a double mastectomy, and they only wanted to take one breast, and I just said no. I said I'm going to be proactive. I'm going to
Yep.
get because I don't want to have to come back another time and worry about the other one. So I had both removed, and so far so good on that. No,
God bless you, Debbie. And
thank you.
I have your list of other, and
Yeah.
as we got up to the present time, I was going to ask you about your other health issues because
So I jumped the gun.
no, that's all right. But besides the streptococcemia,
Yep.
this breast cancer, what you're describing,
Yep.
and please jump the gun. Tell us, bring
Okay.
us up to date on the Debbie Bean medical history, which
Okay.
is
Shortly after that happened, they found some carcinoma on my back, the back of my shoulder, right behind my neck. So they had to remove that, but he had to make like a scar that went from left to right, and because he had to make sure he had to get all the cancer out. So that was cancer number 2, and then shortly after that, I had a colonoscopy, and they removed a precancerous polyp. So I've had 3 strikes with cancer, and so far I'm winning because in November of 2019 I had a pap smear, and I was proven cancer-free.
yay. And I was cheering before
Yes.
those words came out of your mouth because I have the notes and I knew
Right,
that
you
about
knew.
you. Debbie Bean is cancer free. Debbie Bean has had more bouts with health issues than anyone should ever have to have. I was thinking of the Timex watch, Debbie. I'll get a little marketing talk in here. Timex watches, old commercial advertising was takes licking and keeps on ticking.
Oh, oh yeah, yeah, that's me.
You will
Yeah.
continue to tick and will continue to tick no matter
Yeah.
what you are dealt with because
Thank you,
you've
Bob.
handled so much.
It's all in the attitude. Actually, I call it the AAA effect. I think I told you that. And
Tell everybody that.
attitude, adjustment, and amen. That's my
Amen.
AAA effect.
And Pastor Jacob would second that, the
Yes.
amen part.
Yes.
So attitude, tell us about your attitude. Were you just born with that?
Well, you have to have a good attitude because to me, there is no other option. Because you have to be good, happy with your situation and deal with what you have. Like you said, the cards that you're dealt with, and you have to be happy with it. Because if I was to be Debbie Downer and just complain about everything, I would hurt myself and everyone else that was listening to me. And what good would that do?
Yeah, you're no Debbie Downer. You're the opposite. You're Dabadoo.
That's right.
Dabadoo. No, you're the complete opposite of Debbie Downer. You're uplifting, and then the adaptability. Um,
Yep.
Tell us about that.
Yep. If you can't do something one way, you find another way to do it. You adapt. Like when I first came home from rehab, I couldn't do much for myself because everything was always done for me when in there, and I hadn't learned how to do anything yet. But slowly, every day, I told myself I want to teach myself something every day, or at least a couple times a week, just to learn something new of what I can do. And at first it was slow. Oh, I can do this, or I can do that. And then I found a magazine that sold products for people with um, hand control issues, like I forget what it's called that. Anyway,
That's okay. Neuropathy or
no,
neuralgia. Yeah.
no, arthritis.
Arthritis. Yeah, yeah.
People with arthritis issues. I have catalogs.
Mm-hmm.
I myself a hold of one, and I found so many products that I could use that I started buying like everything I could buy, and then I found a can opener thing that I stick it in my mouth, and put it under the lid of the can, and then just lift it, and I can open up my can of soda. I go to my refrigerator and get my ice that I dropped, and I bring it to the table, and I can pour the soda right. I couldn't do that when I first came home. I taught myself all those things, and there's just so many that I can do now.
I can see you having your own book about your life story someday,
Oh,
Debadoo,
oh,
if that's what you want. I could see you writing it or someone writing it about you because it's an amazing story. And again, that's why I wanted to talk to you on camera and for my podcast today. I wanted other people to hear it. What
yeah.
what do you say to people if they, in other words, a lot of people aren't blessed or able to have the attitude you have? What about people who complain about, geez, someone might have a headache and they think it's the worst day of their
Yeah.
life? How do you,
People,
what do you say to them? How do you encourage them?
well, usually I don't have to because no, I've had people come up to me and say, "Dee, today I had a really bad headache, but after I met you, my problems don't seem so bad anymore. So thank you." So I really don't have to say anything. They see it for themselves.
See that? That's why you're magic. You're
Oh,
no, when you think about it, see, that's your superpower, that you are just being around you brings people up, and who doesn't want to have their spirits lifted?
oh,
Um,
you're too kind.
no, it's from the heart, Debbie. It's from the
Oh.
heart. It's just coming out of me how I feel about you. Is there anything I haven't asked that you want to say?
Actually, no, I thought of two other things that, not to add insult to injury again, but I also had two C-sections when my kids were born, and I had colonoscopy. Not a colonoscopy. Oh, I'm at loss for words here now.
That's all right. These things are adding up and it
Yeah,
might blur together.
yeah, my had to be removed. My spleen, and there was another organ.
You've had so
Yeah,
many procedures
yeah,
and
I know.
surgeries.
I counted them one day.
Hard
It
to
was over. There was
keep
like
up with them.
10 or 12 different surgeries I've had over the course of everything.
Well, if you think about it in the next few minutes, let us know. But
Yes,
two
yes,
C-sections and another organ removed in
yeah,
addition to your spleen is what you're
right,
saying.
right.
Plus the bouts with cancer and the streptococcemia.
Uh-huh.
which was the worst blow that you were dealt, that you again have overcome remarkably well, physically and emotionally. Can people connect with you, Debbie, if they were listening and wanted to reach out to you? I didn't tell you I was
Absolutely.
going to ask you this question, so I don't
No,
want to
that's
catch you off
fine.
guard. How could people reach you if they wanted to, either email or social media?
Um, I started a blog, but I just never finished it. Um, they could email me. It's my name backwards, and so it's Bean Debbie, BeanDebbie at outlook.com.
Okay.
You're
Bean
welcome to
Debbie,
email me.
BeanDebbie at outlook.com.
Yep.
If people want to reach out to Debbie, I would highly, highly recommend you as a friend,
Aw,
not even a question, but also as a motivational speaker, as the subject of a book, as someone just whose presence, mere presence alone, makes people feel good and makes people realize that it puts your story puts things in perspective, and your attitude is infectious, and should be the attitude I wish everybody had in this world. That the world would be much better if we all could look at things the way Debbie Bean looks at things. So thank you.
oh, well, thank you, Bob.
Thank you so much for your time. And I know, you've inspired the heck out of me and will continue to do so. And I know anyone who is watching this episode and listening is inspired and motivated. Thanks again, Debbie Bean.
Well, thank you, Bob. You've done a lot for me by doing this.
My pleasure. You're an amazing person and have an amazing story to share. And I just want to thank those who have tuned in to watch and listen to Bob Cargill's marketing show today, an episode not about marketing, but about the ridiculously awesome Debbie Bean, whose
Oh,
story is inspirational because she is an inspiration. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you to everybody who's watching and listening today. And I will talk to you again soon.
thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Debbie.